Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Evolve Capture Show. This is your host, Shanice Carr, the founder of Elegance Enterprises in the show. And today we have the wonderful, fabulous author, speaker, and relationship coach, Miss Teriece Cherell. She's going to give us some wonderful things today that will help pour into us so that we can become a better person. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here today. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
But of course. So what are you working on? Talk to us. Let us know what's going on.
Girl, I have a few things that I'm working on. So I am the author of Live, Learn, Love with an Open Heart, Life Lessons on
Ooh.
Cultivating Healthy and Meaningful Relationships. I am the co-author of Unshakable Faith Stories, 20 stories of men and women of great faith. I am currently in the process of working on my devotional journal that is the companion to Live, Learn, Love, as well as the workbook. I am
Nice.
the founder of Transforming Consciously, LLC, and that's where I host my author speaking and relationship coaching and consulting services. So I have a few things
Wow.
that I'm working on.
So how do you balance it all? How? What are some strategies and things that you use to help you balance all this?
Oh my God, I'm so glad you asked. So, as we know, it requires a balance, a healthy balance
Mhm.
of time management. And I'm gonna keep it real. I don't always get it right. I don't always get it right, but it is maintaining that balance and it requires prioritization, it requires organization, it requires flexibility, but it also requires focus as well because we're parents, we're wives, we're mothers, we're entrepreneurs, we wear many crowns, and it's a lot of things going on, a lot of things that are competing for our time. But you have to have that healthy balance because if you don't, some things are going to get left undone, and some people are going to feel neglected because you aren't giving them their time and attention. So, really, it's about just making sure that you are present in the moment. And what I mean is, you and I are talking right now. So, this is the moment. We shouldn't focus on, the kids, what we have to do when we get off air. Is just making sure that you are present in the moment to make sure that you can get everything that the moment, is worth. So making sure that
Right.
you're present, you're centered, you're focused on this because it's always going to be something going on. It's always going to be something else that is competing for our time and attention. So just making sure that you're present in the moment, that you pray, that you stay prayed up, that you meditate. So if prayer is talking to God, then I would say meditation is listening to Him. So it requires you to be still. It requires you to be in that moment. Like I said, be present in the moment. And it requires you to just focus on that one thing, whether it's your breathing, whether you're meditating on a scripture, you're just letting that particular thing speak to your soul, get you in that place where you can be focused, where you can be mindful of just that one thing. And then it kind of helps with everything else. Something else I would say is to create healthy boundaries. And that not only goes for your relationships, but for yourself. So when you think of a boundary, some people are like, you can't do this. I'm not putting up with this. I'm not putting up with that. But to
Mhm.
me, a boundary is designed to protect,
Mhm.
against something or someone. So if you are in a relationship, I suggest that you sit down with your partner or your spouse and you come up with some boundaries together. You incorporate that into your time together. Now, if you're a single person, you can set your own boundaries, but the problem that I find with boundaries is we set boundaries, but we don't communicate them. So if I have a boundary and I don't share it with you and you violate it, I can't be mad at you. You didn't know I had that boundary. So just making sure that if you have them, and you should, and they should be healthy and protect all parties, but that you communicate those boundaries effectively so that the other party can understand.
Awesome. That is wonderful. So, what made you get into this industry? Because what you have is just very to the core. And I love that you just straight to the point like that. But what made you want to get into this industry to assist people with relationships and speaking and becoming an author?
Well, I've always loved to read, write, speak, and act, and I share a little bit about that in my book, Live, Learn,
Okay.
Love with an Open Heart. So the speaking, reading, and writing has always been there. Like I write poetry, and as a young child, I started writing about 8 or 9 years old, just about my life, my experiences, about growing up. And it's so funny, looking back now, like, hey, I didn't never think I was going to be an author, but that's how life is. That's how life is so symbolical of the journey. Now, while I love to write, I didn't want to be an author. That wasn't the career or profession that I exactly or initially wanted. I wanted to be a
Mhm.
lawyer or an actress. But it's funny because, okay, that's the acting part, as I stated. That's the speaking part. I'm like, well, maybe I'll be on TV acting as a lawyer. So I was always trying to find a way to incorporate the speaking and the acting, or the writing. So I started writing at that age, writing poetry. It was just a form of self expression. So the
Okay.
arts, any form or way to express yourself, I'm interested in. I love it because, especially growing up, you need to have those outlets, other than playing with kids. And I was a little different because I love to read. So everywhere I went, I had a book, had my high prize, and I had some sunflower seeds.
Oh,
That's
I
me.
love it.
That is me. And to this day, when I'm at home or wherever reading my book, if I can, I have my sunflower seeds and I have my book. That's just my thing. So, of course, as I got older, other things started occupying their time. So I didn't write as much. It was always there, but I didn't really do it as much as I did when I was younger. So in 2018, I became affiliated with the All Access Foundation. It's a nonprofit mentoring organization for young women here in New Orleans. And CC Harrison is the CEO and founder. And she was the CEO of my church here in New Orleans, City of Love. Shout out to my church, Bishop Love and Pastor Fran. And it was an organization, and she invited me to come to one of the interest meetings. And the four initiatives that they mentored young women on was going back to school, starting a business, becoming a homeowner, or writing a book. Well, I have a master's in business administration, so I wasn't really thinking about going back to school.
Mhm.
I was doing credit repair and credit restoration, so that was kind of the business and the homeowner piece going together. So I'm like, you know what? I want to write that book. Let me get back into writing. Now, mind you, at that time, I already had my tentative chapter outlined because I knew that I wanted to write on relationships because it was a topic that, was really speaking to me. And I was dealing, with relationships. And the
Mhm.
thing that differentiates me, I would say, from other authors on relationships is my book isn't just about romantic relationships, it's about all types of relationships. So I address faith, family, finances, the relationship with your partner or spouse, the relationship with your child, as well as the relationship with yourself, because it's through our relationships that we discover who we are.
Wow.
And while all relationships are not created equally, each one has the power to teach us about life, ourselves, and others. So, one thing you'll always hear me say is relationships are the greatest lessons and blessings of life, even the ones that don't work, because there's always a lesson to be learned. There's always something that you had gained from that relationship, as well as, something that you gave to the relationship as well. So if you look at it that way, I think it helps people to appreciate and acknowledge relationships more, and they'll begin to see themselves differently, and they'll make sure that the relationships they engage and cultivate are healthy and mutually beneficial. So that's pretty much how that came about. After I wrote the book, I'm like, this relationship thing, people aren't getting it, but I wanted to help them get it because I believe that there's so much there, than just dating, than just being married. So lately I've been speaking to singles, embracing your season of singleness, because I do believe that this is the season. And in this season, if you're single, God wants to do a work in you. He wants to do something with you, and you have to allow him that time. So that means for myself, because I am a single woman at this time, that means just making sure that I'm working on me. making sure that I'm getting myself together and that I'm in alignment with God's will and God's word for my life. So, it doesn't mean I'm alone or I'm lonely. And some people may be, but that's not always what you think. And I think sometimes singleness or being single has a negative connotation because people think you're alone and you're lonely. And that can be the case for some, but that's not the case for me. This is just the time that God has me to work on myself because I know that relationships require time and attention and affection and all those things that we want because they're like beautiful flowers. They need to be cultivated. And I know at this moment, I'm the flower that I'm trying to cultivate. I'm the flower that I'm trying to cultivate. Not being selfish, but then we get to the self care aspect, and we know that
Mhm.
self care is self full. You can't pour from an empty cup. And I can't love you or someone else if I don't love myself. And if I want you to love me the right way, I have to show you. I have to teach you because everybody's concept of love is different. If you're with someone who grew up in a different background or didn't experience, the same loving household that you did, they want to
Mhm.
love you the best way that they know how. But if you deserve and want and need to be loved in a different manner, you have to be willing and open to teach that person. And on the flip side, they have to be open and willing to learn the way, that you need.
Wow. Wow, wow. I love it. Because, we don't often think about when you hear relationship, you automatically think about a couple. You don't think
Mhm.
about the relationships you have with your peers, your friends, people you interact with, and the relationship you have with yourself.
Yeah.
You don't think about that. I love it. I love it. So is
Thank
there a blueprint, or if I'm confused and I just
you.
want to learn, I've been taught so many different things, there's so much out there. What could I do to just better the relationship with myself? Is that something that can be revealed in your book? Is that a program that you may offer, or talk to me?
All right. So yes, chapter 8 of my book is staying true to you. And I do speak about, some practices and things that you can do that incorporate self-love and staying true to who you are. And when I
Okay.
say stay true to who you are, I don't mean the person that you think you are, the image you portray on social media. I mean the person that God created you to be. And you won't know that person if you don't have that relationship with God. If you don't make sure that you cultivate and strengthen that relationship, you won't know who you are. So you can't stay true to it if you don't know it. So making sure, first of all, in my book, I speak about the faith with God because that is the ultimate relationship. He is the foundation, for myself and many others. So if you want to, when you think about any other relationship, and I think about he is the perfect example. So when I think about a relationship, I think about the elements or components. And I also have a chapter in my book that speaks about that as well. But I think about love. I think about sacrifice. I think about forgiveness. I think about support. I think about commitment, loyalty, all those things that we want and need in a relationship. Now, mind you, all relationships are not created equally. So,
Mhm.
some want different things, but for the most part, I do believe those are the basic elements or components, if you will, that constitute a successful, healthy relationship. So when I think about that, that's everything God is. He is love. He makes the sacrifices. He is forgiving. So everything that I want to need in a relationship is what God is. So that's why when I think about the person, I think about, a godly person. Now, they won't be perfect, but they can have some of the qualities and characteristics that are necessary, that are healthy, and that, you want to be with a person in a relationship that has those characteristics. So one other thing that I speak about in my book, and I coined it my triple A method, is to
Mhm.
acknowledge, accept, and adjust. And I don't know if we could post that somewhere or tag it, but it's acknowledge, accept, and adjust. That's my triple A method. So that's something that I actually just spoke about last Friday. I spoke to a singles ministry. They had their ugly sweater Christmas party. Grace of God Christian Center in Philadelphia. Girl, I was the speaker for the event virtually, of course. And I spoke about my triple A method. And it's very important that we when we're going through that period of self-reflection and self-evaluation, and everyone goes through this at different times in life. And I actually advise or recommend that you do it often. It's not a one-time thing. That you make sure that you use my AAA method, that you first of all acknowledge that there is an area that you need to work on, that there is a
Mm-hmm.
deficiency or a lack, and we all have because we all have faults, flaws, and failures. So we all have areas that we can work on and that we can improve in and be better in. Because I do believe that the goal is for everyone to get better. I believe that we want to be better in every area and aspect of our life. So the first thing, if you're going through any step or any program, you'll see you have to admit that you have a problem. So you have to acknowledge. I say acknowledge. You have to acknowledge that there's an area that you need to work on. Okay, now after you acknowledge it, that's the first step. That's the hardest step because we
Mm-hmm.
don't like to always look ourselves in a mirror and face the truth. And reality can be harsh sometimes. And if we gonna keep it real, there's some good, bad, and ugly things about ourselves that we don't like to face when we look in that mirror. And this method, it's a process. It requires that you are authentic, and it requires that you are honest with yourself. You can lie to others, you can hide from others, but two people that you cannot hide from. You cannot hide and lie from God, first of all, because He created you and He already know. And you cannot lie and hide from yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, acknowledging is the hardest thing to do. But if we can get that first step underway, then we know that it's a process that you can get better if you have that mindset. If you have that mindset and you want to be transformed and you want to be renewed, it starts with changing the mindset. So if you first acknowledge that, then you're on the way. So after we acknowledge, we're going to accept. Now, accept doesn't mean settle, oh, I have this issue, it's just going to be me forever. I'm going to settle. It means that you accepted it and now you're trying to seek help. Who do I need to talk to? Who do I need to speak with? And there are some questions that you can ask yourself. And there are some questions that I came up with when you're going through this process that's going to help you get through the process. So first you're going to acknowledge, then you're going to accept, and lastly, you're going to adjust. Now, what adjusting means, who can help me? What or who do I need to back away from? What things do I need to give up or eliminate from my life? And as I said, it could be what, it could be things, or maybe some people that you need to step back from. Everyone isn't meant to go to the next level. Everyone isn't meant to go where God has you going. So it may be some people that you have to step back from and give up and get rid of. And sometimes we don't like to do it, but I'm like, everyone's not meant to go there. And when I read in my book, I'm like, okay, you flip the page is a new chapter. So their chapter may be over in the book of my life and my story. It's on to a new page, a new chapter. You don't want to keep going back. You want to move forward. So if you can
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge, if you can accept, and if you can adjust those things about yourself that aren't pretty, that may be hard, but you want to get better in them, then you're going to, do the work and undergo the process because it's a process and it's going to be a journey. But the good thing about it is, although I say self reflection and self evaluation is something you're doing for yourself, but you don't have to do it by yourself.
Awesome. Wow, I love it. So, what are some things that, for someone as they're getting ready, whatever they're dealing with
Mhm.
in their life right now, if they want to reach out to you or they
Mhm.
want to become a part of your tribe and learn more from you or possibly become one of your clients, how can they reach you?
Well, they can reach me on Facebook, and it's Cherell. Instagram, I am Cherell. And they can also, the best way is probably through my website, and that's www.teriecechurell.com. And that is spelled Teriececherell. And we can share that information with them with the show notes, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so that will be the best way. That will give them a better understanding of, who I am, what I do with my relationship coaches and consulting services with my author and speaking. I'm available for speaking, book clubs, conference panels, prayer breakfasts, singles ministry, youth, kids, anything that you need a speaker of. I can cater my message. If you don't want anything from my book, and what I would like to share right quick, if I could, is so the book is three sections divided into three chapters. So it's living the
Mm-hmm.
life, learning the lessons, and loving the legacy. So that's where the live,
Mm.
learn, love comes from. Living the life, learning the lessons, and loving the legacy. So for the first section of chapters that relate to living the life are faith is, family matters, friends, and finances. So when I think about living the life, it entails those things for me. So after we live the life, we're going to learn some lessons. And that's choices, chances, changes, commitment to cultivating relationships, and communication is the key. Now, after we've lived and we've learned, we're going to love the legacy that we're leaving behind. Time is of the essence, true to me, and transforming life. So when you get live, learn, love, I'm going to take you through the steps of how living, learning, and loving will have you living that life that you desire, that you want to, that you can create. And it's making sure that your relationships are healthy, that they're mutually beneficial, that
Mm-hmm.
you are allowing God's light to shine in and through you so that you can be a beacon of light and hope to others so that they can see, see that. They're going to want some of what you have because it's going to be so good and it's going to be shining so brightly. They're gonna want some of that light to rub off on them. Like, hey, I need some of that too, because it's such a good feeling and it's such a beautiful thing. So they're gonna want some of
Wow. I just want to say thank you so much. What I'm getting from you in that is that communication and interaction, whether it's with yourself, a higher power, or any being that you come in contact with, is very important. And that you need to make sure that you're pouring into yourself so that you can pour into others in the correct way. And that in order for you to be truly successful, you have to be open to looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, you know what? I'm not where I want to be, but I can be. So, how do I do that? And thank you so much for giving us the testimony of your book, Live, Learn, Love, and Live a Legacy. A lot of people are forgetting to think about, legacies and leaving behind, and it all starts with within and how you deal with people, especially with COVID going on. We have to learn how to come back and deal with people, whether it's virtually like this or once we can, come back face to face. And relationships and other aspects out of couples are very important. So, what would you say would be your biggest tip that's on your heart to give to our listeners today?
Oh my God. I have so many jewels and gems that I like to share, but I would say the biggest thing is, and it's something that you're going to hear me say often, it's going to be to make sure that your heart is open to give and receive the pure, unconditional love of God. That's the only way that you can lead a life or any type of life. Because we know
Mhm.
God's commandments are to love him, to love others as we love ourselves. That's pretty much what it all boils down to for me. When you think about life and what you think about what God created. We're living,
Mhm.
we're learning, and we're loving. And that pretty much sums it up. So if you can do those things the way that God designed for us to do them, the way that He, wants and created us to do them, I think you'll have this life figured out. But it does require that your heart is open, that your mind is open, and that you're willing to make those necessary changes. No one is perfect. As I shared before, we all have faults, flaws, and failures. But if we begin to see ourselves and others the way that God sees us, we are perfect in His sight because we were created in His image. So if we were created in His image and He's perfect, then we too are perfect. God is love, so we too are love. But if we don't love ourselves, if we don't love God, if we don't love others, we won't be able to experience love in the way that we were meant to. We won't be able to receive it from others, and we won't be able to share it with others.
Awesome. Wow. Did you guys hear all those gems that she dropped and just make you say, wait, I need to think about that. I need to restructure some things within myself. Did you guys hear that? Wow. Make sure you guys get in contact with her, get a copy of the book. It will change your whole perspective of life, learning, and loving others and yourself. Thank you so much for being a part of our show today. We are very appreciative of your jewels and your time and your willingness to impact the world in such a positive way. And we wish you nothing but the best from here. This will not be the last time that you guys hear from her, okay? Wow. Thank you so much. And we'll see you all later.